Update. Am I the a-hole for misleading my cousin and destroying his marriage? Original post. There's some really weird drama in my family, and I feel like I'm going insane. So here's the background. My family is a little unusual. There are 3 adults and 2 children. The adults are me, my wife, and another woman best described as my wife's platonic life partner, and also my very dear friend. I'll call the partner Sally. Sally has lived with us for 20 years. The kids call her Ma. We live in a 4-bedroom house, and Sally and the kids each have their own bedrooms. Sally is aromantic and asexual. She and my wife love each other very much, but platonically. Sally is like a sister to me. I cannot overstate how incredibly platonic her relationships with both of us have always been. We're all very happy together. I've been super glad we have her since we had kids. Parenting is so much easier when you have a numbers advantage. My cousin Dave has been married to his wife Mary for something like 15 years. They have 2 kids. Dave talked Mary into opening the relationship about a year ago, and now they're getting divorced because he's struggling to find anyone willing to date him. Well, Mary isn't, and he's incredibly mad about it and destroying their relationship. And by it's, I kind of mean he is. He's jealous and resentful and making that her problem. And also now mine, because he says it's my fault. According to him, he thought it would totally work great because my family make polygamy and open relationships look easy. Which, what? Setting aside that Sally's relationships with both my wife and me are platonic, there's no open relationship in our household. Sally and I each get a weekly date night with my wife. I take the kids on her night, she takes them on mine. I did say parenting is easier with a numbers advantage. I think my wife and I have significantly more quality time together than we would if it was just the 2 of us. When the kids can't sleep, they go to Sally. So my wife and I are never disturbed after we go to bed. Sometimes Sally and I go to games together, and my wife takes the kids then, because she's not into sports ball. No one in our house is dating anyone from outside it. These are committed relationships that are, to all intents and purposes, exclusive. None of us has ever mentioned seeing anyone else. Even if we were, which again we're not, I don't see how that would make me responsible for him treating Mary terribly because he's jealous. Somehow, he was apparently convinced that he and his beer gut would get all the girls, but no man would be interested in a charming, kind woman who keeps herself in reasonable shape and bakes the best cupcakes you will ever taste. I'd have dismissed this out of hand, but my aunt, his mother, and like 6 other family members agreed that I'm the a-hole and have been insisting that I should apologize to my idiot cousin and help him talk Mary into closing the relationship and staying with him. I like Mary. We've been friends for 20 years and she's a good person. Also friends with my wife and Sally, and a wonderful aunt to my kids. Given the choice between her and Dave, I'd keep Mary in the family along with her kids. Someone in my family's insane here. Is it me or them? Who's the a-hole? Now for the top comments before reading the update. Not the a-hole, and your cousin Dave learned a hard lesson many men have learned. They grossly underestimated how attractive their partner will be and grossly overestimate how attractive they will be when they beg to open a marriage. I've read many stories on here that ends like Dave's. She goes along to keep the marriage lively and finds she's quite a prize for others, while bored boy gets left behind in the dust. Makes me laugh out loud every time. You had 0 to do with Dave thinking he was going to get laid left and right and getting a rude surprise instead. He made that mess of a bed and he can lay in it. Everyone in the family pointing fingers at you is out of line. Tell them to STF you and back off, or they'll never see/hear from any of you again. Keep in touch with Mary though. She sounds lovely. None of these dudes seem to stop to consider that they're living proof of their wives' low standards and will not be difficult to replace. Tell the flying monkeys to go screw themselves with a cactus. Point out that they are morons. Block them, no contact. Move on. Maybe have a barbecue and invite Mary, not the a-hole. It would shock no one if Opie were to mention that Dave has always been the apple of his mother's eye. It would explain why Dave believes the sun shines out of his behind, and why he thought women would be lining up to ride him. It would also explain why it cannot be Dave who's screwed up, and why there must be a scapegoat, Opie. I wonder if in addition, Dave's mom was also a golden child of Opie's parental black sheep? I'm the black sheep child of the black sheep, and my parents' golden child sibling and their children will often wonder how come I have these things? Own a home, in a stable committed relationship with a loving partner, own my car, have fun outdoor toys and trips, when their kids don't. I think for a while, My parents' sibling even thought their kids deserved some of my parents' estate when they passed. Now for the update. TLDR. My cousin Dave persuaded his wife Mary to open their relationship. Now he's mad she's dating and he isn't. He was blaming me because he claims my extremely close relationship situation made open relationships look easy, just because there's a third adult in my family. A bunch of other people were hassling me to take the blame. So far so stupid, right? Turns out that, unbeknownst to me, Dave's sister Tina reads this sub a lot. And she saw my post and immediately figured out that it was me, posting about her brother, and she won't tell me if she was one of the commenters or not. But for those of you who called that Dave was the golden child, Tina says you were right on the money. She called me this morning, and she seemed to find that really validating. And I have literally never heard her sound so happy. She's usually pretty depressed, so thanks. Everyone who decided to read into their family dynamics, you did her a solid. That was about 8 a.m. I had to get off the phone to head to work. And then at about 10, I got a text from my wife that just said, "Come home now." I got another one just as I was starting the car that said, "The kids are fine," which I really appreciate, because that at least let me change gears from panic to concern. At some point, we might discuss that. It would be good to include that in the first text. Anyway, not the point. I got home as fast as I safely could. I pulled up on the verge and tried to go in the front door, but the handle's broken. Mary's car was parked in the driveway. I had to go in through the garage. There inside was my wife, Mary, and Mary's eldest Jack, male 12. Mary was banging around the kitchen and Jack was crying on my wife. As I understand it, what happened was, just before she called me, Tina texted her brother a link to the post and made some kind of comment about it. I don't know what exactly she said, but Dave went to a rage. Like the kind of thought he grew out of when we were teenagers, breaking stuff and screaming. I thought the last time he did it was the time he hit my little brother and I beat the crap out of him. I'm not saying it was right, but we were kids. I'm also not saying I'm sorry, to be honest. And then he hit Mary. She's got a bruise coming up on her face. I'm shaking writing this. I feel like it's my fault. I can't remember if we told her that he used to be like that. We honestly thought he'd grown out of it. Mary managed to get the kids in the car and drove straight to our place because she knew there'd be someone home. Sally's a stay-at-home mother, and my wife works from home some days, and there's just generally someone home. Dave followed and tried to force his way in. Apparently, my expensive security door was worth the money because he managed to damage the handle but the door stayed closed. Seems he gave up and ran when my wife yelled that I was on my way home. Jack burst into tears while he and I were moving furniture, so we talked and hugged for a bit, and I was having a lie down in my bed because he was kinda wrung out. We're waiting for a locksmith as well to fix the door. After that, we're going to take him and Mary to the police station to make a report and give statements and whatever's involved in all that. Sally took our kids and Mary's youngest to my parents' place, in case Dave came back. They're too young for this, but Jack refused to leave his mother. We're going to meet up with them after the police station. Those of you who said we should adopt Mary are getting their wish, at least for now. Jack's going to be sleeping in my youngest big boy bed. The kid let guests stay in his cot and sleep in Sally's room for a bit. But Mary's youngest and my eldest will be sharing a room because they're only a few months apart and they get on well. Mary's sleeping in our couch until we get all this figured out. My youngest will probably think this is the best day ever. He hates his big boy bed and is going to get a reprieve from the transition. Plus, he gets to share a room with his ma and there'll be cupcakes in the house because Mary's stress bakes. And our kitchen counter will be covered in cupcakes. I should add that according to Tina, Dave was telling his family that I talked him into the open marriage thing specifically because I wanted to sleep with Mary. Plus a bunch of other nonsense that I've honestly forgotten. It's been absolute crap of a day. It is only 2:30. I'm pretty sure I just acquired 12-year-old son 10 years early and seriously messed up, at least for a while. And I have to figure out how I'm going to fit Jack's needs into my life without neglecting my own kids. I can't even tell if I'm exaggerating. Jack's a wreck. And maybe those "please be my dad now" vibes are temporary, but maybe they're not. You know. Thanks everyone for all of your input. Don't be mad at Tina. I don't think there's any way she could have predicted Dave would lose his mind. I'm not saying it was right. Well, I sure as heck am. Sounds like he needs a repeat performance. Word. I think you need a bigger house so that Mary can stay and maybe bring home a Sally of her own. Heck, even a brick could have more feeling for her than her soon-to-be ex-husband. You aren't responsible. Dave was going to snap sooner or later. Your post moved the timeline up, and while Mary's bruised, she's alive. If something else had triggered him, it could have been worse. Next story. Am I the a-hole for saying I won't ask for help from my in-laws ever again? My husband, 30 male, and I, 27 female, have been married for a little over a year now, but have been together for over 3. He's an only child, which has brought up a couple of issues along the way, but nothing we haven't been able to resolve. When we got married, we moved out of state due to my husband being in grad school and a job offer I got. Unfortunately, life hit us with a curveball, and the office I was working at closed. My husband was close to being done with grad school, and we decided to move back home. My in-laws volunteered to help us with the move back, driving the truck, packing, all of it. They are retired and have the time, so we figured we'd take the help. They stayed with us for close to 2 weeks where we paid for everything. We made the move, and a week after we get settled in, I get a bill from my mother-in-law for all the expenses they incurred in for helping us move. I was very upset, but my husband wasn't even fazed. I asked him what the reasoning for the bill was, and he said they're retired and on a fixed income, so these expenses weren't in their budget. I agreed to pay them what they were asking for, but told my husband I am never asking them for help ever again. I told him we didn't ask for them to come help, they just volunteered. Yet they're charging me for their gas, hotel for the drive back, and some meals? He says I'm overreacting. Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. I wouldn't ever ask them for help again either. I hope that they at least helped enough that it wasn't a waste of your hard-earned money. If you have children or pets that they watch for you, will you get a care bill from them? Like, where does this end? They also should have said ahead of time what they expected their costs to be. Or, since it sounds like your husband expected this, he should have given you a heads up at least. Seriously, this is bizarre behavior. OP should definitely send them an itemized bill for 2 weeks of lodging and all expenses she incurred. Who cares that they're retired? She's unemployed, which seems to be a much worse situation. The balls in some people. Of course not the a-hole. Or if you go over for dinner at their house, will they give you bill at the end? Do you have to tip? Not the a-hole. Hire professionals if you're going to pay people. Not the a-hole. You were also in a situation where you needed to be mindful of your budget. If it had been discussed ahead of time, you could have simply said, thanks very much, but we can't afford to cover these expenses. We'll be taking care of moving on our own, or budgeted for their expenses. Even worse, that her other post from a few months ago is that her husband wouldn't get a job and wasn't interested in taking finances seriously. Not the a-hole OP, but you need to have a bigger conversation with your husband and his financial expectations. He should be responsible for paying his parents, not you. Not the a-hole. As someone that unfortunately had in-laws like this once before, please understand that this is exactly how they will continue to behave for the rest of the relationship together. It will not end here, and this isn't the only situation they will find a way to tally expenses and bill you for. Think very carefully about this, and if you want this for the rest of your life, a serious talk needs to be had about it. And I really don't see how your husband doesn't think this is absolutely absurd. It's something you should come together with on him as well. I'm now divorced from that situation, but holy crap, it was an absolute nightmare. Last story. Am I the a-hole for not letting my sister use my address to send her kids to school here? My sister Jane is a single mother to her autistic son James. James was having a hard time at his school. His school district is severely underfunded, and they just do not care. The schools where I live are pretty nice, and my neighbors, who have kids, said they have a lot of great programs for kids like him. Since I had extra room, I decided to offer to let Jane and James move in with me so he could go to school here. Since he started, he's been doing really great here. The teachers and aides are much more engaged than at his old school. They've really been helping him work through some of his behaviors as well. My other sister Leah is being weird about it though. Besides the better teacher and aides, the school James goes to has a lot of other activities, resources, and in general is just a lot nicer. Leah and her family lived in the same town that Jane and James used to live, so her kids go to the underfunded school. Now, she wants to send her kids to school here too. However, they're not taking any out-of-town students. So Leah wants to use my address so she can send her kids to school here. From what I have seen online, it looks like it can be considered fraud to do that. As a fairly tight-knit community, people would definitely figure out what we were doing and that they didn't actually live here, so I don't want to take the risk. Besides, Leah's kids aren't having trouble in school. Their school may not be the best, but they're doing okay. Still, Leah thinks it's unfair I won't help her kids get out of the crappy school by using my address, when I have let Jane and James move in just so we can go to school here. It's wonderful that you've opened your home to support your sister Jane and her son James in providing a better educational environment. Your decision to help them was a thoughtful and caring gesture, and it's making a positive impact on James' life. Regarding your sister Leah's situation, it's important to remember that each family's circumstances are unique. It's not unreasonable for you to prioritize your family's well-being and follow the rules of the school district. Jane and James were in a particularly challenging situation, and you made a choice that was important to their immediate needs. While Leah's desire to provide a better education for her kids is understandable, using your address in this manner may lead to legal or ethical concerns, as you've pointed out. You're well within your rights to make this decision, and it's essential for Leah to respect your choice, just as you've supported Jane and James in their time of need. Ultimately, you've shown kindness and support within your means, and it's okay to set boundaries to ensure the well-being of all involved. Not the a-hole. There are ways to enrich children's educational development that don't involve fraud. Your sister needs to look into that. I think it's great of you to provide your nephew with special needs resources he really needed. Not the a-hole. If Leah got busted, her kids would be out, and the school district would definitely check on Jane and her son. It is considered fraud, and you and Leah would be liable. My town is vicious going after families that use fake methods to get their children enrolled. I would not let her use my address. Where I live, families who lie about their address are fined equivalent to tuition. Sucks that not everywhere has solid schools, but committing fraud isn't a way to fix this issue. Update. Am I the a-hole for abruptly cutting my ex-fiancé out of my life? Original post. I, male 25, met my now ex-fiancé in my first year of college. We were both 18 and went from friends to lovers pretty quickly. We clicked so well, and everything was so easy and effortless. We had a really good relationship. It's the kind of relationship that everyone wishes they were in. The kind of relationship that people idolized and said, if those two broke up, then love doesn't exist. You get the picture. For the purpose of this post, let's call my ex Ashley. Ashley was everything I was looking for in a woman. Funny, smart, attractive, down-to-earth, and family-oriented. She wanted to build a life together. Our families got close over the course of our relationship. It was like we were already one big family before even getting married. As planned, I popped the question a year ago not knowing that this would change everything. She said yes, of course, but things started to change. Slowly but surely, over the months, she became more distanced. I tried to ignore it and chalked it up to nervousness. You know, cold feet before taking the big marriage plunge. I should have trusted my instincts. She always went out with her group of friends on the weekends. I've been on these outings before. Usually it's clubbing and drinking. It's not my scene, but I trusted my girl, so I had no problem with her going without me. These outings became much more frequent after I popped the question. I tried to ignore my gut feeling that something was wrong about this. I should have listened. Last week, I got a text from one of her girlfriends. She said she feels super guilty about what's been going on. According to her, Ashley has been worried about getting married. She feels that she hasn't had a chance to explore other options, and the prospect of getting locked down for life made her really anxious. At these outings, she will frequently flirt with guys, dance with them, grind on them, make out with them to get it out of her system. Since she wasn't sleeping with them, she didn't consider it cheating. According to the friend, she also went down on a guy in the club bathroom. She sent me pictures and videos from some of those escapades. My heart sank. I felt like I died that day. I thanked the friend for telling me and told her to keep it between us. For me, any form of cheating is a big no-no. I knew it was over. What makes this worse is that I have a past with cheating. She knows about my high school ex who cheated on me, and being a stupid teenager, I tried to end it all. This just makes this whole situation cut even deeper. She knows how much hurt she could cause, and still went ahead with it. I wanted to crawl into bed and cry for a month. I wanted to be weak. I felt weak. But I decided I would give myself the chance to mourn and cry over this after I protect myself. Me and my fiancé share an apartment that we both pay rent for 50-50. I decided to take 2 days off work and covertly started to move my things out to my brother's house across the city. He knows about everything and immediately offered his place to me. The first day I moved non-essential items out. When Ashley got back from work, she made a comment about it, but I brushed it off by saying I sold some stuff and took some more stuff to a storage unit to tidy and clear space up in our apartment. She didn't question it. I was furious on the inside about everything that I found out about, but kept cool to avoid suspicion. She noticed I was a bit withdrawn, but I told her I was just tired and stressed from work. The second day, while she was at work, my brother and his wife came over to help me pack everything else, and I was fully moved out by 3 p.m. that day. Since then, I have avoided every single form of communication sent by my ex. I have completely cut her off. I refuse to talk to her or her family. I don't even want to confront her about what happened. She came home that day and saw everything was gone. She texted all my friends and family, who in turn texted me, but I only responded to my parents, who are fully behind me in my decision. Her family and friends are blowing up my phone and saying that I'm an a-hole for leaving without a word. They've even been blasting me on social media. I don't really care. She knows what she did. To me, she is dead. She doesn't exist. Because of all this backlash, my brother and his wife are now also questioning if it was right of me to completely ignore everyone. This has caused me to doubt myself a bit, so here I am. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments before reading the updates. Not the a-hole. She knows what she did. You might want to tell everyone so they get off your back. I wouldn't go into details. She cheated. She's not telling anyone. OP doesn't want to be harassed. Please give space. OP is trying to just ghost her. That was really stupid, even if he's trying to be non-confrontational. He should have dumped her, requested she stick to the truth when discussing with mutual friends as he has evidence, but obviously she can be vague. If he completely turtles and disappears, she will try to write a narrative where OP is the villain and will have time to spread her version. OP deserves his engagement ring back and his share of the deposit on the apartment. Not the a-hole. Fiancé going down on random dudes in bathrooms? Nah, dump and block is the only thing to do. I also vote to send her parents the evidence of her cheating and to just tell others she cheated. No, WTF. The parents and siblings didn't do anything wrong, and it's pretty messed up to subject them to seeing an image or video of their child they may never wish to have seen. Verbally letting them know that their child had been unfaithful is fine. There's zero need to post the proof to everyone. Pretty messed up thing to do, and her actions do not justify that. Send her one message. Tell your family to back off and leave me alone. You know what you did, and unless you want me to send them all proof of what a lying, cheating POS you are, you will tell them to back off. Then block her. Why warn? Just do it and grab popcorn. Mini update. An overwhelming amount of people have convinced me to reach out to her parents and give them an explanation to clear my name. I will update when I get a chance tomorrow. Thank you for the responses. Now for the full update. After an overwhelming amount of people screamed at me in the comments to speak out, I decided to break my silence. I didn't want to make this whole thing public. Despite what she did, some part of me still cares for her. I was with her for 6 years. You can't just throw that away overnight. I came to the conclusion that the right thing to do was to talk to her parents. Only her family needed to know. Everyone else can have whatever opinion they want of me. I don't care. The people who truly know me and are close to me are the only ones I care about. I sent a detailed message of what happened to my closest friends and family. All of them, of course, believed me right away. No pictures needed. I didn't feel like it was necessary or appropriate to spread those pictures of her, so I didn't. Now that the people I cared about were sorted, I moved on to her parents. I messaged her mom, who, by the way, I had gotten so close to I considered her the second mom, and she considered me a son. She was very upset with me, but agreed to meet up. I felt like this needed to be an in-person conversation rather than a nuke I drop in an email with everyone they know CC'd. I met her mom and her dad at a diner we used to frequent for breakfast. I know, so cliché. It was quite emotional. They were understandably upset. They didn't do anything wrong, and I cut them out of my life like nothing happened. I understood why they were upset, so when they were confronting me, I was very quiet, just listening, letting them get it all out. I admit I was tearing up with them. That is, until they accused me of some things. It's been a whole week since all of this went down. In that week, a lot happened. Apparently, according to her parents, my ex convinced everyone that I cheated and that she kicked me out. And I haven't been answering anyone because I was so ashamed of what I had done. Lol, I literally laughed out loud. I responded by saying that I am sorry and I wished them a happy life and walked out. I was so freaking upset. I couldn't even have imagined of being accused of this. What a freaking joke. I can't believe her parents would believe her and throw me under the bus so fast. I walked out because I'm pretty sure I would have said some things I'd regret to her parents. I didn't want to do this, but she left me no choice. I activated a nuclear option. I went home, made an email titled "For Your Reading Pleasure," and attached every picture her friend sent me, including screenshots of the chat with her friend where she expressed how guilty she felt about the cheating. I also attached the videos of her grinding and making out with other guys. I included a long explanation detailing everything that has happened since D-Day. I ended the email by saying that I do not wish to be contacted and that I expect my ring back at some point. I attached her parents, any friend I could think of, any coworker that I just so happened to know as well. Screw it. So that's where I'm at now. I may be the a-hole for sending that email, but she really tested my freaking limits when I found out what she was telling people. I have zero regrets. Currently crashing at my brother's place on a pull-out couch. He's helping me get through this, as much as one can guess. Who knows what kind of fallout that email will create. Either way, I'm gonna sit back and enjoy it with popcorn, whilst sobbing. That is why people on Reddit insist you tell people immediately, because usually when a cheater, after a long relationship involving family and common friends, they realize the future consequences. So it's easy to decide and manipulate people around her so she can move on easier when no one knows why you did what you did. Yeah, I was the one of the comments who said he needed to tell the family at least about what happened. If the ex is capable of cheating behind his back, she's capable of doing this. Though I suggest putting screenshots of the messages and snippets before the act. I'm not surprised her parents chose the ex. I mean, that's their daughter. Regardless who came first, there's a chance they'll pick her side. Now, this is kind of confusing because OP said everyone were calling him an a-hole for just moving out all of a sudden. And now the ex is saying she kicked him out? My reading comprehension skills may be off, but I'm just confused why they'd be calling him an a-hole for moving out without a word, if they knew that she kicked him out. Unless she told them much later on, which should have raised suspicions. I'm thinking they're mad at him for moving out because they think he gave up and didn't apologize according to them. Wholeheartedly, I feel that you did the right thing with this. Pulling nonsense like this is never okay, and trying to throw you under the bus should always come with consequences. My heart goes out to you, OP. She is their daughter after all, and they did try to contact you. I recognize why they reached out and why they believe their daughter. Still, OP and even his brother and wife were getting harassed by people he chose to cut out. OP seemed to not want to stir the pot and chose to just leave the situation because he didn't want anything to do with it anymore. But his ex throwing him under the bus, lying and ruining his reputation, leading to him getting harassed for an extended period of time by multiple people, even to the point where his family is getting harassed, isn't okay. Last story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to help with my child? Years ago, when I was a freshman in college, I got my then-girlfriend pregnant accidentally. Typically, we used a combination of the pill and rubbers, but that night we decided to go without, and unfortunately, her hormonal birth control failed. She didn't realize she was pregnant until it was too late for Plan B. I assumed there would be a termination as we had discussed the possibility of exactly this scenario before in our relationship, and both agreed at a time it would be what we wanted. Unfortunately, when push came to shove, she decided to go back on that and press forward with a pregnancy. I was not on board and let her know that. Later, testing showed that the child would be disabled. At that point, I told her very frankly yet again that I absolutely did not want this burden. I reminded her that we had agreed on a termination even had the child had been healthy, and I said, in no uncertain terms, that if she decided to press forward with us unilaterally, I would live up to my bare minimum legal obligations and do no more than that. I advised her that being an effectively single mother to a heavily disabled child, requiring lifelong care, would be far more difficult than she seemed to realize, and that no version of reality would this ever lead to the two of us building the happy family I think she was imagining. She disregarded that entirely and brought the baby to term. I saw him exactly once. In the end, her parents legally adopted the child. My rights and obligations were terminated at the time. I lost touch with her, but went on to graduate and have the life I wanted now. I recently heard from her for the first time since the adoption, after she found me on Facebook. Since then, she hasn't done as well for herself. Unfortunately, both of her parents have passed. Her father died of COVID a few years back, and sadly, her mother passed in a car accident a few weeks ago. She's now responsible for her son/adoptive brother, and doesn't have the resources to handle him. Apparently, the care for her son was extremely costly even with insurance, and they weren't able to leave much. He's completely incapable of any degree of independence. He's profoundly mentally disabled and can't even feed himself or use a toilet. I told her that I would not be getting involved under any circumstances, advised her to look into any government assistance or charity that her parents may have overlooked, and to see if having him put in some kind of facility would be feasible. I was very firm about her not contacting me again, and I blocked her. My wife agrees with me wholeheartedly about not burdening ourselves with this, but she suggested we might have an ethical obligation to send some money to help with the situation. I disagree, and I'm afraid that giving anything at all will be like feeding seagulls. I want nothing to do with it at all. This isn't a serious conflict between us, but I just want to know if her point has merit. Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. You might be the biological father, but the boy was formally adopted by his grandparents, and that meant that they were his legal parents. As you say, your rights and legal obligations were terminated at the time, and therefore you aren't required to step up now after all these years. Maybe offer to help find appropriate care for the boy. It sounds like his physical needs are greater than what his mother/sister can handle alone, never mind the financial headaches. But you aren't under any obligation to help out. I have a feeling that if you gave money, she would keep coming back for more. It's sad, but your ex was aware of your position and what the child's future was likely to be, and she still chose to keep the baby. Without her parents' practical and financial assistance anymore, she needs to get her brother into a home where he can receive the help he needs. Your ex should also receive Social Security payments since the son/brother was legally the son of now deceased parents. Yes, the kid should get survivor benefits for both of his parents along with disability payments via Social Security, assuming they are in the US. If not, I know most other countries have similar programs for the disabled. The child would be obligated for survivor benefits or disability, whichever is greater. With the death of the mother, the survivor benefits could increase but isn't guaranteed. One of those situations where I absolutely thought Opie would be the a-hole, but Opie, I'm now nodding my head in full agreement with you. It was her body carrying the child and her choice to bring a profoundly disabled person into the world. Not a whole lot you could say about that at a time, but it was the choice of her parents to adopt him themselves, thus absolving you of legal responsibility. This is a tough situation, but you also predicted a lot of what actually did come true. You know that raising this kid would be a monumental feat. You never wanted that burden yourself, and you opted out when you could. I don't blame you one bit, and you're not the a-hole. If Opie does decide to lean toward offering anything at all, it should not be done without consulting an attorney. Absolutely, it probably wouldn't be a bad idea to consult with a family law attorney, regardless. Update. After reading the advice given in the comments, I decided the best course of action was to continue my policy of refusing any direct involvement in the situation. However, as she explained to me that she was unable to care for the boy on her own, I phoned social services in her state and reported a vulnerable person not being adequately cared for. I was contacted for a follow-up and provided copies of her messages. My dad is crying because he wants to live with me after everything is done to me, plus update. I, 26 female, have dealt with a lot from my alcoholic dad. Growing up, he was never mean to me, but never really a father. He worked overnight and slept all day. His drinking got worse when I was 16 and continued to decline. When I was 18, he lost his job and chose to drink with his friends instead of finding a new one. I have 3 older sisters who were already moved out when this happened, so it was just me and my mom living there. Electricity would get turned off, water shut off. He wouldn't pay for more oil in the winter, so I would have to sleep in a freezing cold house under 6 blankets. He spent most of this time at his friends' houses, so we didn't have to even deal with it. My mom barely made enough money to cover groceries and other expenses, and I was full-time student in beauty school and had a part-time job, so it couldn't help much either. My parents fought terribly because of this, and living there was hell. So I moved in with my boyfriend at the time, now fiancé, with his family, because I couldn't take it anymore. After this, I barely heard from my dad for years. He ended up losing the house, and my mom got a cheap apartment for herself that she could barely afford. My dad became homeless and either slept in his car or hung out with his addict friends. This went on for 5 years, and he barely talked to me during this time. Fast forward to the present. My fiancé and I worked our butts off for ourselves and built a house. We've been moved in for 18 months. But one day after we moved in, I was T-boned by a pickup truck and sustained horrible injuries. My dad found out at Christmas, which was when the injuries were still fresh, but didn't bother to text or call me once after that. Now, he had a stroke in January. He actually does have Medicare, so he's been in a state-run nursing home since then. He's miserable there and keeps calling his sister, sobbing that he has 4 daughters but none of them will take him in. He's staying in this nursing home for free, and my sisters and I all have full-time jobs and are starting our own lives. My dad has always been a very irresponsible person, leaves the front door open all night, leaves the stove on, etc. On top of all that, he just had a stroke, so him staying with one of us would turn us into a nurse. I'm working full-time, planning my wedding and still doing finishing touches on my new house. I worked hard for all of this despite what he put me through. I am the only one out of my sisters that still lives in the area. The rest of them moved away, all about 2 hours away or so. My dad told his sister he is waiting for my fiancé and I to open our house to him because he wants to stay around here. His sister feels so bad for him and asked us all if we could do a family phone call on Friday, just my sisters and my aunt, because he's so unhappy and is so sad his daughters don't want him. I'm absolutely furious that he is calling around telling people in the family that I won't offer my house to him after everything he put me through. My aunt even told him he can stay with her until his disability comes in, and he told her he wants to stay with his daughters. Like he has a right to pick and choose. He didn't even bother to freaking text or call me when I was suffering from my accident. But he is expecting me to open my home to him when I'm planning a wedding and working full-time? I'm starting my life and I want no part of this, especially because he can either continue staying in the nursing home or stay with my aunt. I'm going to have to be rude on this phone call because everyone is probably expecting me to feel bad for him. I don't. He did this all to himself. He chose to stop working. He chose to give up on parenting when I still needed him. He chose to not be involved in my life. Now you're going to make me feel guilty for not opening my home to you? Side note, I've even been going to the nursing home once a week to get his dirty clothes and do them for him, despite all the anger I've had towards him all these years. I'm about to stop doing that too. They can do his laundry in the nursing home. Now for the top comments before reading the update. First, congratulations and best wishes to you and your fiancé. Second, I'm very sorry that you're going through all of that. But you absolutely have every right to refuse to give in to his manipulation, guilt-tripping, and other nonsense. If other family members are very worried about him, well then they can move him in with them. Thank you. I agree. I told my fiancé that I think he wants me to offer our home so he can tell himself he didn't fail as a father and that his kids still love him. I of course feel awful for him and I wish him the best, but I'm not in a position financially or mentally to handle him, especially knowing he has other options. I just find it so selfish. I'm a very people-pleasing person and it's very difficult for me to stand up for myself. So you can imagine how stressed I am over all of this. But I'm forcing myself to stay strong. Best way to get over that people-pleasing urge, which has been programmed into us by our parents by the way, is to pretend you're reading your post from the point of view of someone else. So, reread your post as if one of us has written it, or your friend who was asking for advice. What does your gut tell you? I got as far as he's in a state-run nursing home but he is miserable in there, and keeps calling his sister, sobbing that he has 4 daughters. Before I said out loud, oh hell no. He doesn't have 4 daughters. He forfeited you and your sisters when he chose drink over parenting, when he chose to neglect you, when he couldn't even be bothered to contact you after your terrible accident. You owe him nothing. He provided the sperm and that's it. He does not get to play the sad dad now after everything he's put you through. To be honest, I wouldn't even be a part of this bloody phone call. If your aunt feels so sorry for him, then let her look after him. If she believes that you should care for him and have him in your house after everything is done, then personally I'd ditch her too. Absolutely stop doing your dad's laundry too. Go as low contact as you possibly can. No contact would be better, but only you know what you're comfortable with. Sending you huge hugs. Thank you so much. I appreciate the advice. The only reason I plan on being on the call is so I can be super stern and blunt, because this is now the 4th time my aunt brought up the idea of him staying with me, and I'm going to put an end to it on this call. The second I hang up the phone with them, I'm driving to the nursing home, dropping off his clean clothes at the front desk, and never looking back. I'm not going in to visit him. I'm not taking his dirty clothes with me. I'm going to get right back in my car, block his number, and go home. All you have done is grow up, move out, and make your own life of your own choosing. This is what emotionally healthy parents want their children to do. This is what I had to keep reminding myself of when my parents tried to get me to move back to my hometown. They didn't need me, but thought I owed them my company, the company of my children, and future old age care. You don't owe your father anything. Thank you. I agree. It's funny how he thinks he can be out of my life for years and then try to come back in when he needs something. I'm glad you were able to stay strong to your parents. Now for the update. So the call never happened because one of my sisters got held up at work. She sent a text to me and our other sisters in a group chat, and not included, and said we can talk sometime soon. I don't want to wait to speak my mind, so I texted back and said I have something to say. Here's the message I sent. Well, I think it's great that you guys are willing to help and do what you can for Dad, but I've reached my breaking point. I personally don't think it's fair for him to give up on being a parent the last few years I needed him, when we were still living at home, and then barely contact me since then, and then make these comments to aunts and whoever else that I won't open my home to him. You have no idea how mad I've been the last few days. It's insulting. Neither fiancé and I are comfortable with him ever staying in our home. I've mentioned this numerous times since his stroke, but it's still being brought up. Not by you guys, by him and aunt. Neither of them has a right to make me feel this way. I'm at a point now where I feel like I was nice enough to do his laundry, fill out his disability papers, bring him groceries, and visit with him, despite all of this sadness and anger it caused in me. Now, him and aunt and whoever else are expecting more of me just because he's my dad. He doesn't get to just stop working or being a parent and then decide to act this way. I truly no longer want any part of this situation with him. It may sound harsh, but I tried to help, and now I feel like I'm being taken advantage of. Last story. My mom kicked me out for my foster sister plus update. For some background, 19 female and my 8-month-old son live with my mother, 54 female, who decided to become a foster mom 2.5 years ago and was placed with 2 girls I'll call Liz, 14 female, and Amy, 8 female, who at the time were 12 and 6 respectively. Both girls had severe developmental, mental, and behavioral issues due to drugs and other issues that I will not include for privacy. Liz's issues were more severe, which resulted in her going to a group home after being with us for 6 months, as we couldn't properly care for her. During those months, she stole over $200 cash from me and $150 worth of stuff. She also cursed, spit, and threw things at me when I didn't do exactly what she wanted. I still have scars on my chest and arms from Liz, as I had yelled at her for taking my earrings. That was the day Liz was removed. So about a month ago, my mom told me that she was going to bring Liz back, as she needed a place to stay till she could get a bed at a better facility. I did not feel comfortable with her around me or my son at all, and when I told my mother this, she told me that I could leave then. So I packed up our stuff and am now staying with my sister. I have an apartment set up already but can't move in till August. I just don't know what to do and feel so unimportant. Edit. I just wanted to add a little more context for everyone. So for everyone asking if Amy still lives with my mom, sadly, yes, she does. And now that I'm not there to help her, I'm very concerned about her. I am my mom's 4th bio kid and her youngest bio kid. My older sister took primary care of me until my mother kicked her out. 3 out of 4 of her bio kids have been kicked out for separate reasons. The only reason my mom is a foster parent is for the money, and after Liz leaves, she will be taking in 3 more kids, so she can get money to buy something. I'm not sure what, but it's not for the kids. Liz also had a case against her for abusing a 6-year-old girl, not Amy, while she lived with us. She has been with my mom for a week and a lot has happened since, and I will update when it's over. Thank you for all the comments and advice. Now for the top comments before reading the update. It's not that you are not unimportant, but that she's a crappy mom, and she will get paid for taking care of Liz, and not you.
She is thinking short-term and only about the money that she can make. Such as it is, especially when you consider that Liz can get disability checks as well. That's a good amount of money plus food stamps depending on the state and Medicaid. That's nothing to sneeze at. The problem is that money is supposed to be spent on a person, but I happen to know, because my own mom did this, that she can keep it for herself and say that she is. The government is kinda lazy about sending people to check if they are telling the truth. As long as she's not lying on her taxes, she's going to get away with it. You are completely right here. That is 100% the reason why she did it. She said that when she became a foster parent, the money was important. As much as this hurts, you made the best decision that you could for you, and most importantly, your son. Protecting him is the most important thing right now. Your mom can now deal with the repercussions of her decision on her own, and you can sleep soundly knowing you made a right decision. I wish you and your son so much luck and happiness in this next chapter in your lives. Especially since she basically kicked out her infant grandchild for a troubled mess that was already justifiably removed by government services the first time around. No one's going to let Opie's mom live that one down once the baby's age is known and why. Troubled messes come with bigger checks. Former foster kid here. Can also confirm as someone who once wrote the checks for foster families at an organization I worked. It is significant the difference between a youth with and without that need for extra help. My sister used to purposely take in little tyrants. You know, the ones that bite people and need therapy 4 times a week. She was getting tons of money. They also get more for infants and toddlers. If your mom is okay with putting you and your child in harm's way, I hope down the road she's not confused as to why she has a daughter and a grandchild that she is cut off from. If I cut her off, so will the rest of my family. I'm the only reason they haven't gone no contact with her. Then that's on her, not you. Unfortunately, we reap what we sow, and your mom being cut off is not your responsibility. I feel for you, I really do. But you'd be sacrificing yourself and your sanity so she can continue to mistreat you. Now for the update. Liz was officially and permanently removed from my mom's care and will not be allowed to stay in foster homes with any kids. She's a child, and I don't take joy in her life getting harder, but I'm relieved for the safety of Amy, who is still with my mom. So for a full description of what led to this, about 2 days after she returned to the house, she got mad at Amy and took a handful of Aleve, painkiller. After being rushed to the hospital, she repeatedly said she didn't want to die. She just wanted to feel pain because she was mad. After that, they still put her back in my mom's house, where about 2 days later she stole a lighter and proceeded to light the house on fire. I do not know why she did it. She gave about 50 different versions of why, but ultimately it was probably because she wanted something. After multiple psychological evaluation and questioning, she said that next time she will burn the whole house down and make sure that no one escapes. There will not be a next time. On a different note, I will not be cutting off my mom until she no longer has kids in her house. I will, however, be going low contact. For everyone telling me to report her, she told her caseworker exactly why she wants more fosters, and the caseworker proceeded to find her a 17 female, 12 male, and 6 female. And in the caseworker's words, the 17-year-old will take care of the other 2, plus Amy. They will be placed next month. The system is so hugely screwed, I'm not quite sure what to do. Thank you for the advice, support, and even the criticism. It gave me a great laugh. Sorry I didn't update sooner. I didn't know what was happening until 9 last night, and I was working. Update. Am I the a-hole for insulting my father's girlfriend and telling her to get out of our lives? Original post. My mother was my world. I remember reading books, watching documentaries, and going on road trips with her. She baked my sisters and I cookies whenever we were sick, and her and dad would take us hiking every other week. I still miss her even now. When I was 11 years old, she passed away from a driving accident. It was the hardest year in my life, and it hasn't gotten easier. 2 years after she passed, my father started dating a woman named Nicole, and 4 years later they're getting married. Nicole is younger than my father. After dating Nicole, I saw my father come back into his shell, but it turned into something else. Nicole brought adventure back into his life, but they often went on elaborate trips and frequent night outs. During all of this, I felt neglected. My father slowly stopped taking my sisters and I on our weekly hikes. He started speaking less and less over calls, and even once forgot my mother's birthday. After she came into our lives, I started losing my father. He just wasn't there anymore.
One time, when my sister and I were home alone, she fell down the stairs and got a huge cut on her forehead. It was clear she needed stitches, so I called my father immediately. Nicole answered the phone and I told her to give the phone to my father. She refused, saying he was busy, and before I could get another word in, she disconnected a call. I embarrassingly had to ask the neighbor to bring us to urgent care, where my dad later met us. This woman at one point removed my mother's picture from the fire mantle to put up a picture of her and my dad from their trip to Washington. The thing that tipped me over was when she made my father forget about my mother's birthday. Every year, my sister and I go with our father to visit my mother on her birthday. It was an annual tradition even before Nicole entered our lives. Nicole and my father went on a trip to Florida and were supposed to be back 3 days before my mother's birthday. But because this woman is motion sick, my father decided to break the drive back into small intervals to make it easier on her. Because of this, he ended up missing our annual trip. He didn't even call us. Not even a week later, my father has the nerve to tell us about an exciting surprise. Nicole is pregnant. I get angry and tell my father, "You knock her up when you can't even be here for us?" I then look at Nicole and tell her she is a disgusting piece of trash and to get out of our lives. My father gets angry and yells at me to go up in my room. Later, my grandpa unexpectedly came over to pick me up. My father didn't text me anything. Even as I left, he wouldn't even look at me. It's been 2 days and I'm still at my grandparents' home. I feel ashamed for saying what I said, yet I don't feel overwhelming regret. Am I the a-hole? Edit. When I saw how deep the cut was, I immediately called my dad. He was staying over at Nicole's place at a time. When I called, Nicole picked up. She said, "Hello?" I said, "Sister's bleeding. Can you pass the phone to Dad?" She said, "Your dad is busy. I can't." And immediately afterwards, she disconnected the phone. I then left to go to get my neighbor. Now for the top comments before reading the updates. Not the a-hole. Nicole showed her colors when your sister was injured and she wouldn't let you talk to your dad. And he has showed his colors too, in many different ways. I hope your grandparents can continue to be there for you. You didn't say your age, but I hope you can be free of all this soon. That is, be 18. You were harsh and rude, but I can't fault you given what you've shared. I appreciate it. I'm 17 and I've spoken to school counselors too. No one is willing to help me. I've tried talking with my dad about how I feel way before my outburst, but it always ends with, "It happened years ago. It's time to move on." I don't even know what that means. My sister can't get help either, so I'm trying to peacefully exist for her. How old is your sister? You're old enough for almost to get away from this awful treatment, but I guess you don't want to leave your sister. I don't know what else to say that would be really useful, but I truly hope you get out before you're expected to take care of Nicole's child for free. My sister is 13. She's very sensitive and quiet, so it's hard for her to reach out to people on her own. She's recently been struggling with bullying at school and it's been really hard for her to deal with. I can never imagine leaving her behind. Not the a-hole. I'm so sorry, OP. I don't even know where to start. You are categorically not the a-hole. Nicole is a huge one, but your dad wins by a mile. You and your sister should be his top priority, not the afterthought he's currently treating you as. What happened at the hospital? Did you and your sister tell the nurse that you were home alone and that your father wouldn't come to the phone? My neighbor came with us inside the urgent care, but while driving us there, it called my dad and it picked up. My dad said he'll be there in 15 to 20 minutes, which he was. I'm scared of saying anything that could get him in trouble, so I made something up like she got hurt while playing outside. In the past, I mentioned something to a school counselor and a police officer visited our home. My dad got pretty angry, so I tried to avoid these situations. Hopefully this gives some context. What did your father say when he found out Nicole wouldn't let you talk to him? In an emergency, he still chose Nicole over his children. I'm sorry. I don't know if anything was said between them, but when my dad came to urgent care, he didn't seem worried and didn't walk in with a sense of urgency. On the phone, he told my neighbor he would be there in 15 to 20 minutes. As for the phone call with Nicole, I mentioned that something happened to my sister and I needed to talk to him, but she refused and quickly disconnected. Edit. I've decided to contact my maternal grandpa tomorrow. I'll let you know how it goes. Now for the first update. I've called my maternal grandpa when everyone was still sleeping. It ended up being a 2-hour call. I basically mentioned to him everything I've said here, and how I want to live with him if possible. He said that as much as he wants me to go get out of there, that he can't do much without my father's approval. I hinted a legal approach, but he said he wouldn't be able to see us if it got that far. My grandpa also shared some new info regarding my dad. According to him, when I was 14 and my sister was 10, my dad dropped us over at my grandma's farm since he and Nicole were flying out. A day after they returned, my grandpa dropped us back home. We were still sleeping in Grandpa's car when this situation happened.
But when my grandpa knocked on the door, my dad answered the door drunk out of his mind. From what little he could see, my grandpa saw that the house was a mess. He told my dad that he would bring us back the following day once my dad was in his right mind. We left back to grandpa's place. Then, my grandpa got a call from my dad the next morning, threatening him with the police if he didn't bring us back immediately. My grandpa mentioned that he would speak with my paternal grandparents to see if something could be done about our situation. Second update. Hi everyone, it's been a while. I really want to thank all of you for your perspectives and advice. Just wanted to give an update. Regarding Thanksgiving dinner, when my dad and Nicole arrived, I asked if I could speak with them both. My dad said he didn't want to talk and went into the living room. Nicole still remained by the front door, so I apologized for insulting her. She replied that she needed to leave and went to the living room. Overall, she still seemed rightfully angry with me. Dinner was awkward because my grandma would try to get my dad and I to talk, but he wouldn't really bother. After dinner, I pulled him aside and apologized again. He ignored me and went straight to Nicole. I still wasn't sure if I was heading back with him or not, so I packed everything just in case. When he was getting ready to leave, I asked him if I could come back home. He said Nicole wasn't comfortable having me home, even though it had been a few days since the incident. I spent the entire night crying on the phone with my sister. Therapy and living situation. After having my call with my maternal grandpa, he called my paternal grandparents a couple days later to discuss my situation. I overheard a call between them. My maternal grandpa expressed he was concerned about me, especially my mental state, and asked my paternal grandparents if they were willing to talk to my dad about putting me in therapy. My grandparents said they'd be willing to take me to their church's mental support group or talk with their faith leader who specializes in grief counseling. My grandpa pushed back on the idea and mentioned the need for more professional help, but they were not receptive to the idea. All three of them also had a heated conversation about my living arrangement. My grandpa said it was ridiculous for a grown man to throw out their daughter, and it was shameful that my paternal grandparents are not hard-pressed in helping me get back home. That's all I heard regarding the conversation. Now, my paternal grandma started taking me to weekly private sessions with a faith leader. I'm not entirely happy with the arrangement, but it has helped me start to process my grief in a healthier way. Also, I'm still living with my grandparents. I apologized over and over through text to my dad and through my grandparents, but he has not responded. My maternal grandpa has called my dad many times, but my dad blocked him. I am contemplating telling my school counselor next semester the details regarding my dad and not omitting anything to protect him. I also wasn't invited to my dad and Nicole's Christmas dinner, which hurt, but I'm starting to not care to have a relationship with my dad. I don't know if my feelings will change. In a twisted way, it was good he didn't let me go back home with him. The space has helped me focus on myself. I'm so sorry that you have to deal with this. I'm in tears while typing this. You need to expose him completely. He is able to get away with everything because people still believe he is a good father when he is a terrible one. Also, I would send him one final text message and tell him that he should disregard all previous apologies as he didn't mean them, and you are happy for him to sign away his rights to your grandpa. Then go full scorched earth and destroy him. He should be ashamed of himself. I've thought about this long and hard to the point it had mentally consumed me. I imagined every revenge and final say moments, but one thing I've recognized in therapy is how much my resentment and anger has been holding me back from moving on. I'm now just trying to emotionally detach from them. I have every intention to involve the school counselor for my sister. Is your sister still being neglected? I'm worried she's being left alone like you guys were before. Stop apologizing. You did nothing wrong. Your father is a selfish man who is only thinking with his nether region, unfortunately. One day he may realize, one day he may not. But you and hopefully your sister will be long gone and leave him behind in the dust, because that's where he belongs. The father you knew died the moment he started dating Nicole. Mourn your father in grief counseling. When you're allowed to get a legitimate counselor, process everything. Tell the school counselor everything. Expose both of them. We're all supporting you. She definitely is. My dad has only gone on one major trip between Thanksgiving and now, and during that time she stayed over. She also stays over on weekends too. I just hope he's better with a baby than he was with us. Thank you for your support. I'm so sorry your dad is such a weak person, and that your grandparents are enabling him and refusing you the help that you deserve. You'll soon be 18, then you can move in with your maternal grandfather and get some real therapy to help you unpack the abandonment and abuse you've suffered. Get yourself stable and get an education so you can be there for your sister when she needs rescuing. I have a feeling that she will be used as a constant babysitter. I think you should tell the school counselor everything. But if you can wait for your 18th birthday to do that, you should. Don't tell your grandparents or the faith leader that you're planning to report him or that you're planning to leave. Best of luck, Opie. I hope things get better for you soon. Thank you.
I'm looking forward to college and putting this behind me in time. I'm trying to convince my grandparents to allow my sister to live with them full-time, so she has some semblance of peace. Last story. Am I the a-hole for being furious with my father and refusing to go to his wedding? I, 27 male, have 2 siblings, 24 female and 20 male. We used to belong to a family of 5, but sadly our mother passed away from cancer earlier this year. It has been tough for all of us, but it has been especially hard on my younger brother who is currently in college. He failed 2 semesters in a row this year. Due to difficulty coping with the situation, it is on the verge of being suspended. Only 2.5 months after my mother's death, my father informed my sister and I that he had already found a new girlfriend and was in a serious relationship. My sister and I were shocked and disappointed. Finding a new partner after only 2.5 months seemed rushed and offensive. My sister and I explained to him that while we were willing to accept him moving on to someone else, we were, however, not interested in being involved with this new woman in any way. It was just too soon. We also made it very clear to him that he needed to hide the situation from our brother, who was struggling to pass his classes. This was his last chance, and if he were to fail the semester again due to difficulty coping with the situation, he would be suspended for a year. Our father claimed to understand our concerns and apologized for any added stress this put on us. He also claimed to fully agree about hiding the situation from my brother for now. I hoped at this point that the situation was under control. Sadly, it was only about to get much worse. Around a week before Thanksgiving, my brother was flying home from school for the holidays. At his school, they get around 10 days off before they have to fly back to take their final exams. School is on quarter system. My sister and I expected our dad to stay home to spend time with our brother. After all, this was the first major family holiday since our mother's passing, and we assumed our dad would want to make sure our brother was okay and ready for exams. We were mistaken. The morning after my brother arrived home, not only had our father decided to tell my brother everything about his new girlfriend, but he also just left the house to travel to a different state to spend holidays with her. Not only did he show blatant disregard for my brother's situation, but also showed no interest in spending the first major family holiday since his wife's passing with his kids. At Thanksgiving, he didn't even text or call me or my siblings to ask what we were doing. My siblings and I were furious with him over his behavior, and we had a huge fight. He basically tried to gaslight us, claimed that we were overreacting and that we didn't care about his life. He also acted very entitled, demanding we get on board with his new relationship. He then casually dropped the bombshell that he'd planned to marry this woman next year. Given his blatant disregard for my brother's well-being and overall distasteful behavior, I've decided I won't be going to his wedding. And I basically don't speak with him at all beyond replying yes or no, the rare times he does message me. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Firstly, your brother needs help, probably professional, to deal with, process, and learn to grieve while dealing the pressures of life. Maybe grief counseling for everyone isn't a bad call. Info, was it known to be terminal? How long was she given and how ill was she? Was your father her main carer? You probably aren't privy to the intimate details they discussed before her passing. She may have encouraged him to find someone. Pure speculation would be if he was already involved prior to her passing. Some people aren't capable of being alone. Everyone processes grief differently. Judging or assuming anything isn't a good idea. Hiding things never works, no matter how well-intentioned. It always ends up worse. Not the a-hole. A gentle everyone sucks here. Your dad probably more so, and he's just focused on himself and doesn't seem to be considering others. I agree my brother needs therapy, and I have told him as much. It was known to be incurable, but the rate at which it would progress was unknown for a long time. It was only within the last 4 to 7 months that it was known that death would be somewhat quick. My dad participated in her care, but we hired a nurse and a family to live with her during the last 3 months when she began to need help with basic tasks. I imagine if she encouraged him to find someone, he would have told us that. Would have been a super easy way to make everyone feel better about it. We were not asking him to hide it from my brother permanently. He only had to wait at least 2 to 3 weeks until he passed the semester and got off academic probation. I don't think that's too much to ask. Your dad can and should move on, but the velocity is mind-boggling. Shows an utter disregard to the mental health of his child. Has he been this self-centered all of his life? Makes me wonder if he was cheating on your mom prior to her demise. My sympathy, Soapy. Cut the parasite out, keep him as far away as possible so that he cannot hurt you, and focus on your brother. You have lost both parents, not the a-hole. I'm 98% sure he was with his new woman while his wife was dying and a nurse was caring for her. It's gross. I'm chronically ill, and my husband stays home with me sometimes so I'm not lonely. He cooks for me, does chores, and drives me to doctor appointments if I'm not up to driving.